Hello, everyone. My name is Grace Kinney, and today I will be presenting the second pre-recorded CQI workshop. Today, we will be discussing selecting a topic for your CQI project, as well as root cause analysis. As you may recall from the last pre-recorded workshop, CQI is broken down into four main steps. Last time, Clem discussed the first step, forming a CQI team. Today, we will be discussing the second step, identifying an improvement area. The best way a program can identify their CQI project is through the use of their data. Data are tools that illuminate the aspects of a program that might not be working as efficiently as it could be. Thus, it shouldn't be looked at as a form of punishment if we see something that isn't working as well as it could be, but rather it should be seen as an opportunity to now improve an identified area important to the program. Some ways you can measure areas of improvement are through performance targets or indicators, as well as from feedback from participants, staff, and community members. Goals are a concrete way to drive results, but without an explicit equity and inclusion component, goals won't produce better outcomes for marginalized communities, address disparities, or support belonging. When writing your goal, you want to make sure that it is a SMARTY goal. That is smart, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, inclusive, and equitable. We will go further in depth on each of these components over the next few slides. The first component of a SMARTY goal is making sure that it is specific. Aims must be specific to guide you toward improving an outcome. The more specific the goal, the easier it will be to identify processes for improvement and for the CQI team to know that they have actually achieved the goal of alleviating the issue. To help with making sure that the topic is specific as possible, we should ask these questions. Who is being affected by the goal? Who is impacting the goal? Who is going to be affected by the changes? What is the major objective? What change do you want to see? Where is this change occurring? When do you want to see this change occur? And why? Why will you be doing your CQI project to improve an area of concern? If these questions can be answered clearly and concretely, then you know that the topic you have chosen is specific. You want to make sure that the wording of the issue is clear and concrete so your SMARTY goal is understandable. When CQI teams come together to discuss the goal, ambiguity can be clarified by asking team members to indicate what the aim means for them. Be sure each member's interpretation aligns with the overall goal. A final tip for the team is once you have specified and workshopped your topic to be specific, you can ask others outside your CQI team who are less familiar with the overall goals of your CQI project to interpret your goal statement. And this can serve as another check for clarity. The next SMARTY goal criteria is measurable. This again is the outcome of the change plan that needs to be measured by collected data. This criteria also has questions that you can ask your CQI team in order to ensure that your overall goal is measurable. How can the outcome of interest be translated into a measurable data element? How can the achievement of the goal be captured in data? Is the measure quantifiable? If the measure is not quantifiable, it will not be a suitable measurement for CQI projects. The next criteria for a SMARTY goal is attainable. Often when CQI projects begin, Staff members and CQI team members are excited to make changes, and there's a risk to either throw multiple improvement efforts out or setting an overall massive goal that is not attainable. This can impede CQI efforts by slowing down the CQI team. In order to make a goal accomplishable, we may have to dial back enthusiasm at first. There are multiple questions that the CQI team can ask to help with this as well. First, they can ask, can direct service impact this goal? They should be able to, since they are the ones delivering the services and often might be the ones implementing the change strategy. The next question has a couple components to it. The first component is there evidence of the service influencing this goal? Has past research shown a link between the service and the outcome the team is working to achieve? The CQI team might have to do some sort of search in prior research to see if there has been any work already done on their topic. If they find evidence that is already not going to work, then the CQI team is working toward an unattainable goal. The next question also has multiple components to it. The next question to ask is it changeable? If it does not seem changeable, why not? A condition may appear to be unchangeable when in fact it can be changed, or the condition can be changed but is outside the scope of the program. The final question the CQI team needs to ask is the initial goal too large? Setting smaller, more incremental goals at the beginning is important. Once the initial goal is attained, the CQI team is allowed to reset the target to a higher standard for the second period. Smarty Aim should focus attention on where it is needed most. This element is about focusing on the aims that agencies want to or can address immediately. Goals and aims can be attainable with reasonable targets, but they may not be relevant to the agency. To ensure that your Smarty goal is relevant, ask yourself the following questions. Is the aim related to your selected topic? Is the aim meaningful to your team or agency? Of all the things you could immediately work on, is this the most important for your agency and the families served? It is important to ensure that your Smarty goal is time-bound. A goal without a time frame is achievable, but it is difficult to manage since they guide the CQI work and propel the project forward. A specific time frame inherently builds in motivation and accountability for the CQI team. It's also important to make the time frame as specific as possible. For example, by stating by April 25th, 2024 is better than just stating in 1 year. There are also a few questions that your CQI team can ask themselves to ensure that the goal is time-bound. The first question is the time frame specific? The second question is the time frame attainable and realistic? The next component is in a Smarty goal is inclusive. This component involves the CQI team in making sure that traditionally excluded individuals are included in the processes, activities, and decision-making for the project. This can be done at multiple steps. The first step is when the CQI team is interacting with the data to select a topic. They can identify who the issue impacts, and think, are certain populations of people being influenced more so by this issue than everyone else? Once they identify who it impacts, they can then think through how and who should be contacted for input. People who can be contacted for input may include community representatives, parents and caregivers, as well as other experts. Inclusivity can even be asking who is on the CQI team. When it is forming, the program can make note and ask if there is accurate representation of those they serve and if all levels of staff are represented on the CQI team. The questions that should be asked by the CQI team are all people involved with the program involved in the process of CQI? And if not, how do we integrate them to have necessary representation? The final component of a SMARTY goal is equitability, meaning the CQI team needs to make sure that the benefits of the program are applying equitably to all individuals that are receiving the services. This means that the change strategy for the selected topic could target specific populations within the program, because it could be that certain people are not having an equitable experience receiving services from the program. Something systematically would need to be adjusted so everyone has a chance to receive the services. The CQI team needs to see whether each person that they are serving has different circumstances and whether there needs to be different allocations of the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equitable outcome. In addition to this, we need to consider how our goals are impacting equity if the goal is not explicitly promoting equity to ensure it is being thought about. The CQI team needs to consider if their goal is not explicitly looking to have an equity lens applied to it, that it is not inadvertently creating an unintended negative impact for equity. Finally, the last consideration is that the CQI team needs to consider how they are using their subject matter experts and those who have lived experience with their work on their project. This can be by putting them in positions of leadership and not just using them to mark that you have representation. In other words, those that need a more equitable experience should be able to influence the SMARTY goal and how to achieve the goal in a meaningful way. There are some questions that your CQI team may ask itself. These questions include what unintended impacts might result from this goal? Who have I consulted to check for unintended negative consequences? Are there any key stakeholders I'm missing from my CQI team? If I added an outcome or activity goal related to a specific marginalized community, will achieving this goal help build power and/or shrink disparities for this community? If so, how? Now that we have gone through all of the components of a SMARTY goal, one of the best ways to ensure that the topic and goal achieves the SMARTY goal is to use this formatted sentence here. The first blank, or the when, refers to the time by which you want to achieve your goal. This is how you can make your SMARTY goal time-bound. The second space, where the number, percentage, or percent change is how you are able to quantify the desired change and see whether it is attainable. The third space, where the whom/what is, refers to who will be affected by the change. Is it caregivers, home visitors, children, or someone else? This is not who is responsible for the change. Instead, it is who will be affected by the change. This is working towards achieving relevance, inclusiveness, and equitability. The last space asks what will happen. Here indicate the desired change, such as initiating breastfeeding or retaining families. Meeting all of the components of this allows for the change strategy and topic to be specific. If all of the blanks are thought through and the previous questions are asked and answered, and then this is filled in, then there should be no ambiguity about whether the CQI team will be able to achieve their goal or not. An example of a filled out SMARTY goal aim statement is, by 2 weeks after a community outreach event, 95% of families will be contacted by the program manager. This goal is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, and inclusive and equitable. To really kick off the PDSA cycle and begin the plan phase, we need to first conduct a root cause analysis of the topic you have selected. A root cause is working to understand an initial cause in a causal chain leading to an outcome, in this case, an issue that you would like to improve for your program. In other words, it is working to identify all of the underlying issues that may be the problem area and the pathway that it leads to the problem area. When CQI teams understand what exactly is causing an issue, they are more likely to develop a change strategy that will be successful in alleviating that issue. This means that we will be treating the disease and not the symptom, because if you don't identify the root cause of an issue, then what will happen is CQI teams might be able to temporarily alleviate the issue, but the issue will eventually come back because the key thing that is causing it hasn't not been fully addressed. There are some key things for CQI members to keep in mind as they are beginning to work on this process. These are included in the core principles of root cause analysis. All team members should have the same goals. This means working together through your SMARTY goal statements and focusing on processes, not individuals. This means helping the team keep in mind that the issue is persistent in the system and not blame others. The next core principle is use open and honest communication and learn from experiences. Everyone on the team should feel comfortable sharing their perspectives on a topic, as it may lead to identifying a root cause. Decision based on data and facts is used to keep your team on track and keep your team from biasing the ideas that are going to be put forward throughout the root cause analysis process. The next core principle is family focus. This means keeping the focus on how your change idea will improve the service delivery to families. And the last core principle is systems thinking, meaning teams should think about how the change to the systems will make the program work more efficiently. There are 5 key steps to conducting a root cause analysis. The first step is to reiterate your topic. This is where you state what is happening. You identify specific symptoms that your team sees, and you state or restate your SMARTY goal statement. The second step is to regather or gather data. You should look for evidence that the issue is present in your program. You should see if you can find how long the issue has occurred for, and The next step is identifying causal factors. Here, you should think of each step in the process that you are working to improve so that your team can pinpoint where things are not as efficient as they could be. You want to try to identify as many causal factors as possible. The next step is to determine your root causes. This is where you will use your root cause analysis tools that we will go further in depth in on later slides. And the final step is to develop a change strategy. Developing a change strategy can ensure that the problem will never happen again. There are three main root cause analysis tools that we will be using. The first one is brainstorming, the second one is known as the 5 whys, and the final one is known as the fishbone diagram. We will go further in depth on each of these over the next few slides. The first root cause analysis approach is brainstorming. Brainstorming is when a group approach that is used to generate thoughts about what might be the root cause of an issue and strategies that can be used to overcome it. There are rules when it comes to brainstorming. These rules may include not judging others' ideas, encouraging out-of-the-box issues and ideas to solve these issues, building upon others' ideas, generating as many ideas as possible, and recording all of the ideas. The next root cause analysis tool is known as the 5 whys. This is where the team asks the first why question. This can be a question such as, why is this happening? The questions then become more and more detailed until the last response represents the root cause of the problem. An example of this, with a problem statement being mothers are not screened for intimate partner violence, begins with the why question of staff are hesitant to ask about sensitive topics. Why? There is no formal screening procedure. If we stopped here, change ideas might be limited to creating a formal protocol for screening mothers. However, if we continue to ask another why question, we get the screening tool is not valid. Why? The data system's auto-scoring function does not work. Now change ideas move from just implementing a formal screening procedure to considering the validity of the screening tool and data system the results are entered into. It is also important to note that while this is called the 5 whys, there can be more or less than 5 questions used. You just want to get to a place where you can't ask another why question. The final tool is the fishbone diagram. The fishbone diagram is a visual representation of possible root causes. It includes the head, or your primary issues, the spine, which connects the ribs, major categories where root causes of issues are organized, and lines. Lines are connected to ribs that are root causes associated with the rib categories. Using the same intimate partner violence example from before, this is what a fishbone diagram may look like. Once you've done all of that groundwork and you feel that your team has identified the root causes of an issue, you, as a CQI team, should step back before going forward. This may include revisiting the SMARTY goal, making sure the root cause of the issue still aligns with each component of the SMARTY goal. And if all of the SMARTY goal criteria are still being met, then the CQI team can then move forward and on to the next portion of the plan stage in the PDSA cycle. You are halfway through learning about the CQI process. The next pre-recorded workshop will cover the Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle.